Welcome to the NNA Learning Connect event for today. I'll do the title in just a minute. I'll do a quick about the NNA. So the Navigating the New Arctic Community Office, or NNA-CO, is an organization that builds awareness, partnerships, opportunities, and resources for collaboration and equitable knowledge generation within, between, and beyond the research projects funded by the National Science Foundation's NNA initiative. The office builds capacity in early career researchers and provides unique opportunities to inspire and engage a wide audience towards a more holistic understanding of the Arctic, its natural environment, the built environment, and the diverse cultures and communities that live there. And I'll let Elena take our land acknowledgement.
So our work is everywhere in Alaska, in the Arctic, and also in other places like Greenland. And so we'd like to acknowledge the indigenous people who have long stewarded and taken care of the lands and waters of the different places. Katie and I joined from the Trothyeta campus, University of Alaska Fairbanks at the Lower Tanana Dene land. And in the Alaska Pacific University, it's in Anchorage, it's the Naina land. And at the University of Colorado Boulder, it's the Ute, Cheyenne, Arapaho territories. And we, beyond acknowledgement, we are working towards helping and working with indigenous people for their self-determination and sovereignty.
Thanks, Elena. I just wanted to do a quick intro before handing it over. So today we'll be talking about community storytelling with data from your project and scenarios of change. And we have Dr. Katie Spellman and Dr. Elena Sparrow with us today from the University of Alaska Fairbanks. And I will stop sharing and hand it over to them. Thanks for joining us today.
All right. Well, if it's just us, if anybody, like, are you interested in more discussion or listening? If you are interested in like more discussion based, then turn your camera on. If you're interested in more listening, then leave your camera off. Because your coffee cup, Mary Beth, is just making me think we should just sit and drink coffee together in your picture. But oh yeah,
I have a coffee cup going on right now. Yeah, sorry, I was having some side conversations before it all got started, but yeah.
Oh, look at her, you're pouring it. Okay. Okay, yeah, some people I know attend the webinar format to be like, I just want to like listen while I'm doing other things. And okay. But Mary Beth, what got you interested in this topic? Why'd you show up today?
Why did I show up? Because I always learn so much when I listen to you, Katie, and talk with you, Katie. So I was excited about that. And I was also excited to learn. Oh, thank you. And also with like Elena, I don't know, I think we've met off and on, but I've heard so many great things about you. And so I was excited with you. And honestly, I was having a case of the moon days and I was like, I don't know if I really want to go sit through a webinar. And then I was like, it'll be fun. Katie makes things fun. So, and Elena's fantastic. I mean, you're also too fantastic, Katie, but like, it'll be worth it. So.
All right, good. So, Karen, Ramey, Suzanne, Laura, Elizabeth, Theo, we're excited that you're here today with us. Grab your mug with Mary Beth and me, and we'll talk about stories. We'll talk stories. We are gonna share a little bit about some work we've done. Some of you, Ramey, I'm pretty sure you've heard us talk about this approach before, and maybe Mary Beth also. But we are going to tell a story about how we've been using storytelling throughout the cycle of a science project. And in the end, it becomes more than a science project, of course. And we're going to use a project we did on wild berries in Alaska that are used for subsistence to show how we did storytelling. And then we're going to really zoom in on this like later part of the cycle of once you have data on a project that you've collected together, how do you use it to plan for sustainability or plan for action in response to the changes? So we're going to talk about scenario storytelling as the main focus of this. So let me share so that we have our destiny in our own hands. Okay. So we just want to acknowledge upfront, we worked with a lot of people on this project, and key partners were Doug Koss taught us the technique of scenario storytelling. So we give him lots of credit because we probably wouldn't have used this approach if it wasn't for Doug. And then Sarah Stanley in the English department, and then my mother, Chris Villano, she helped us tune in our approach for elementary aged kids. And then the Association of Interior Native Educators is among the many people listed here. The Association of Interior Native Educators is one of our key partners, and you can see Melinda Chase is the executive director, Maxine Dybert, who third grade teacher now.
Is a House representative.
And then Nicole James, who they've all really helped us bridge community education and science for our projects. So this project on berries, it was a community science project, and we're going to use this as an example of storytelling and data throughout our talk today. It's you can see Elena, they're working with the kids in Bethel, and my sister's classroom in Shishmaref, and here in Fairbanks and Anchorage, we had community teams in all these different places across Alaska, monitoring their berries, and with the question of if the snow is coming later in the fall, what does that mean for berries? People have noticed all over Alaska that berries are changing, and worried about their abundance and quality, and all sorts of questions. And we've done like a series of scoping and listening sessions to lead up to the questions that we're asking. So in this project, people were worried about the changing timing of berries, and if the snow is coming later, does that leave a higher proportion of berries rotten in the once it freezes? Does it leave a higher proportion of the berries rotten for the winter animals? So that was the key question, and we designed for different modalities in this project. One where we did like remote learning, and had a couple of chances to do interaction with scientists via Zoom. This was even before the pandemic. We were so hip, Elena. We did like Arctic researcher into the classroom via Zoom. Then we did one where there was a highly supported model where in-person relationships were the most important feature, and we're really working collaboratively. And then we did one version of delivery where storytelling was embedded throughout the cycle of the whole process. And Elena will kind of describe what we did with the storytelling learning cycle model.
So the first thing is to engage the youth in trying to reach their prior knowledge through personal stories. Yeah. And so they engage, not only their minds, but also their hands in telling their story about their personal relationship with experiences with berries, what they did with their family, what they remember, words their tradition for a time for harvesting, and what they do with the berries and all. So families and community members share berry stories through community. We had community gatherings where not only the children, but even the adults decided they would like to also express their stories through felt, making art on felt. And then so the students then explore.
Here's
yeah.
Of course, there's always berry themed foods.
Yes.
Because there's Elena getting the plates out, like food. We did berry bingo and like a whole activity night. In some communities, it was standing room only, because berries are a hot topic up here in Alaska. And there's some of the ideas like oh, there's a spider in the berry picking bucket, or the time I lost my keys when I was out berry picking and had to go back, and lots of stories of like abundance, but also stories of scarcity and everything in between. So lots of love stories came out in the berry patch, which was fun.
And so the new model for citizen science delivery is not only, you know, collecting the data for the scientists, but collecting data for their own use and informing the youth and their parents and their community, you know, what's happening in their own communities. And so the youth use the data across multiple sites into scenario stories, you know, comparing them, what's happening in our community, what's happening in another site, same climate, or in another place where the climates are different. So is our village moving towards that story of, you know, are we going to be warmer? And so how can we prepare? And so then plan actions to create their desired future.
Yeah. So we have written up lesson plans for this if you are interested in doing this yourself, but we're going to actually try it. So I'm sorry if you came just to listen, but we're going to do this activity together. So if you can grab a piece of paper, maybe you probably have done this before, Karen, maybe. We're going to actually do it. So while we describe this, you're going to grab a piece of paper, just fold it in half. And on one side, and let me put back up our model, you're going to write do nothing story. And then on the other side, you're going to write best berry future. All right. Good job, Elise. I see you're very good at following instructions.
So I'm the kid who's like, well, what kind of paper do you want? Do you want it
Oh.
rolled? Do you want it like plain? Does it have matter what size it is? Like, okay.
Yeah, you can take any piece of paper, Mary Beth.
Okay, any piece of paper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Just so you have room to write or draw.
Write or draw. Yeah.
Yeah, write and or draw.
And so there, okay, there we go. There's the lesson plan. So scenarios, they are being used more and more in climate change decision making, right? If you have any of you been involved in like a adaptation planning workshop before, or any sort of like turning data to action? Okay. A lot more and more. Oh, somebody chatted in there. Yeah, okay. Good to know, Laura. Well, trust me, they're being used more and more for helping envision the future that you want to happen for your community. And the first step is to explore what would happen in your community if you took different actions, or if you took, you know, like let's say you're like, oh, we want to do all nature-based solutions for our community to like plan for the sustainability of our future, or we want to really focus on our economy or our the health of our community. And so like what variables would you need to prioritize? What actions would you need to prioritize in order for this to happen? What sort of investments would we make? And so often in scenarios planning, they'll come up with like 4 scenarios, and you name them, and you know, like it's a workshop setting, there's like lots of sticky notes and chart paper, and you're imagining the future if certain conditions happened in your community. And so like here's an example with berries. Like if you had a low investment in monitoring and planning for berries, but high berry abundance, and they're lasting a long time on the bushes, you might have a scenario story called all you can eat. That's my husband right there in a berry patch, where it's just like everything, and nature took care of itself. But we all know that that's not necessarily every year experience. So maybe another scenario would be taking stock and stocking up, where you're monitoring your berries and you're harvesting for multiple years in a single good year, and you're putting up your berries or stocking up. So like there's 2 different stories there. We in all these scenarios plannings, they're also used, actually they came from the business world, as you might suspect, because like in businesses, as they're planning for their futures, they often are creating these scenarios of the choices that they're making. they're not models, right? They are stories that you're creating based on your data that you have. So, okay, here's our example data. So on October 31st, which is a great marker day, because on Halloween, every kid in Alaska knows whether they've had to wear their snowsuit out trick-or-treating or not, right? Like growing up as a kid, or when you sent your kids out trick-or-treating, we knew, oh shoot, we're gonna have,
how cold,
how cold
it was.
So we used October 31st. And Venatai sits at, and these were all different community groups and youth groups that participated in this project. Venatai, they sit at the base of the Brooks Range on the north end of the Yukon Flats, and they had few berries left, but good quality berries. In Nenana, which is right here in the middle of the state near Fairbanks, they had some unripe berries left, and we deliberately chose berry pie charts, obviously, right? And also we because we were working with a real range of youth, we tried to pick the data representations that would be easiest to interpret for youth. And so we found that the pies were not only cool pun, but easy for kindergartners to interpret. Their berry pie had, you can see, they're farther south, warmer in the fall than Venatai, and they had a much
more rotten,
more dried out, bad quality berries. And they had more hanging out on the bushes. And then in Anchorage, which is near the coast, and many of you have probably been to Anchorage before, they had very few good quality berries. That red slice is really small. And so I wouldn't want to take a bite of Anchorage's berry pie.
Yeah.
Elena, it's not so
got a lot of rotten.
Got a lot of rotten and dried out,
and
yeah, some poor quality berries going into the winter. So we use like storytelling and puppetry for the students, like to create stories of what would happen to the animals, but for using their data to imagine the future for their berry patch, they looked at the different climate zones of Alaska. So there's Venatai right here up in the far north. It was one of our most northern sites, and it had lots of good berries. There's Nenana, a little farther south. There's Anchorage, even farther south. And the quality of the berries, as it got warmer, there was fewer ripe, beautiful berries for those winter animals. It also means that there's probably fewer nice berries when it was time to pick earlier in the season, and that you probably had to get out there sooner than in your average year during that year.
Yeah.
So we talk with the youth and with the community members in the room about what the trends were as we went from north to south. And then we imagined if the berry season started earlier and fall is warmer and wetter, what would the berry future look like if you did nothing? So on your folded paper, draw a picture. Okay, so imagine we're the kids in Fairbanks or Venatai?
Yes,
Venatai. Okay, let's imagine we're the kids in Venatai. And we just saw that if it keeps getting warmer and warmer, we might have more rotten berries going into the winter. What would our future look like? And we usually set a time frame of about like 20 years, because for youth, you can kind of imagine like what you would be like when you were your teacher or your parents' age, like, oh, okay, when I'm that old, what would it look like? What would the future look like? And so we have them close their eyes, and you can do this too with us. Close your eyes. Imagine 20 years from now. How many grandkids you got? How many kids you got? Do you have a mustache? Do you have a
white hair?
White hair. Do you have, are you still working in your same job? Are you, what job are you gonna be? Are you gonna be the mayor of Venatai? Are you gonna be the tribal council president? And And what will your berry patch look like when you have your big berry reunion back at the school and you're there?
But we did nothing for.
But we did nothing. We're yeah, we did nothing. All right, open your eyes and sketch what your berry patch looked like. And yeah. You could do it. We emphasize quick sketch. Okay,
Doesn't
later.
mean to be.
Yeah, okay, I remember what theirs looked like. They had a phenotype it looked like. Remember a bulldozer even came through. I don't know, Lena.
I
Oh,
know.
gosh. Okay. Yeah, it's gonna get rainier. I think. We just did our sketch here. There's a bulldozer coming through. It's more rain. The climate has shifted to be rainier in the fall. The kids are asking all sorts of questions, and I'm like, oh, it didn't used to be like that here.
We used to have much better berries and so abundant
Yeah.
and so sweet.
We got
and
major
ripe.
soul nostalgia going on. Mary Beth, what'd you draw?
I did very simple, just someone crying because like there's no berries and there's no good berry pie and there's just no berries. It's just a sad world.
Yeah, the sad world. I see. Elise, I'll come to you for the next drawing. Okay. And so this was one of the kids. Okay, no, share it. You're ready. Go.
I drew, no, I blurred. I drew a with like X's instead of berries, and then there's like a fox and it has to roam around a lot and like keep traveling because it doesn't have any food to eat.
Oh, can't find any.
Yeah, totally. And this is one of the students, in 30 years from now, my kiddos will ask me, where did you pick berries and study them? Then when we got there were only rotten berries left. So, and they're like, oh, where? Then we talk about, okay, we don't have to let this be the future. And, if you were doing adult scenario, we've done this workshop with adults with real data
Right.
too. And like, what are some ways? And our book series on berries actually came out of like a lot of this.
Yes.
Like, what can we actually, we have a whole series of books now on climate change and berries, and what can we actually do to help make sure that we do have berries sustained into the future. So like, what could we do? Let's just throw out some ideas here, and we do a big brainstorming with the graphic organizer. What could we do to make a better berry future so that sad face and those little X's don't appear? Yeah, what's an idea of how we could take action? What's your idea, Elena?
So maybe we could look for different varieties that might thrive in a wetter condition.
Okay, ooh, new varieties. I'm gonna write
Yeah.
that in our graphic organizer. New varieties. I need to use the text tool instead of this. Varieties. And that's something that we're experimenting with at UAF in the garden. Elise, do you have any ideas? Could we do?
Pass. I passed to Mary Beth.
Okay, Mary Beth, what could we do? Is there anything that we could do to like help sustain berries into the future?
I think kind of similar to Elena's idea of like new varieties is talking with other indigenous relatives of like what are they been up to? What kind of berries do they have? Just seeing the kind of techniques and stuff like that. And other indigenous foods that are out there. That's a possibility.
Yeah. Sharing and trading. That's a big one that has actually emerged
Right.
as a strategy
Yeah.
here in the interior.
Working together.
Yeah.
And yeah.
We don't get cloudberry anymore, the aquapic. We're having like it's more and more rare in our part of the state, and so people will trade with coastal communities to get that berry so that you could have traditional ice cream.
Right.
And the kids always say making like a protected area. They're like, we want our village to have a protected zone, like berry preserve.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, because they first want to make sure that there's abundance for the people
right.
and before the animals,
Yeah.
and then so that they can manage it.
Yeah.
Protected areas.
You'll see. So we fill out all those ideas, and now, okay. And then we found out that as the kids got older, their ideas became more sophisticated on what they wanted to do to sustain berries into the future. At the kindergarten level, they want to like go out to the berry patch with watering cans and protect them.
If it's very dry, then they want to water them. And then if it's too wet, they want to have a cover.
Yeah. There was one kid that drew a little umbrella. Do you remember that? Like that they would protect them from getting rotten with the
right.
And then by the time we were in the high school levels, they were like advancing policy solutions in Juneau or like trying to take political action on climate change, which that's when you're like, okay, this is so cool to see how the kids are developing the sophistication in their thinking on what is possible, and at what scale. So very cool.
Different scales, yes.
Yeah. I think I got to get out of annotate mode. Okay. And so now we rewrite the future. How do I get that off now? Oh, I thought I was so cool annotating, and now I don't know how to unannotate. But anyway, so then they rewrite the future. They choose one active action that they oh my gosh, Elise, do you know how to get rid of the annotation once you've done it?
There should be like a clear all option in the annotate toolbar.
Okay. Clear all options? No. Okay. Delete. Oh gosh. Select. Delete. Okay.
There we go.
Okay. Oh, I was so cool. Mary Beth, if you're gonna learn one thing from this webinar, it's don't use the annotate tool.
Technology is great, but then sometimes.
Did you see Theo's Control Z?
Oh yes. Okay, that's
Control
undo.
Z.
Good job, Theo. Thank you. All right. So now we pick one of those actions and we rewrite our future. You can do this literally if you want to, but I'll just share what this kid did. There's the same characters. And I think they were in the 4th or 5th grade, this kid.
Right.
Yeah.
And they did have a reserve area.
Yeah, protected areas. And they're able to pick, and you can see that they have their blackberries right there. And now they're picking the berries because there's enough. We then give the kids money, pretend money, to invest in a strategy that they actually want to prioritize to really do something.
Right.
Yeah. So, and then we say, okay, we're like the National Science Foundation or the EPA. We're going to give you $3 million. Where would you invest each of your $1 million or to accomplish this? And really, it ends up the kids talk about feasibility of the different things and what could we actually do now, right?
Right. Instead of projecting the future, taking action now is very important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you want to close this out with some of the things that the kids actually did? So this is,
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
one, you know, from the kindergartners and first graders in Vinatai, they decided they were
I'll show you
going
that, yeah.
to
There they are.
make preserve berries for years with uncertain harvest by making jelly and jam, berry jams. And then they you know, preserved it in bottles and gave it to the elders in the village.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's really, I mean, as young as the kids are, they are being able to, because it's so close to them in a personal way, that they thought about not only making, you know, the berries so that they could preserve it for the future, but also to be sharing and taking care of their elders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then one of the teachers and classes in a rural community called Two Rivers here, they decided that they were gonna try growing other cultivars of berries
Yes.
that were doing well, that could that had higher tolerance of drier conditions. And they planted it so that the kids in the future at their school could have berries in years where the native berries weren't producing. So they made their own little mini food forest, which was pretty cool. And then also, like, as an action, we try to emphasize sharing your story as a part of the end of that whole cycle. You know, it's sharing your story of what your ideas were for the future and what your data shared. And so we did community storytelling nights, and then often would send students to
The Alaska Forum for the Environment.
Yeah.
And they shared with community members from other communities
Yeah.
on what they were doing.
So these are the kids from Nenana and the kids from Bethel, sharing with, you know, with adults to
Mhm.
like stir the adults up, and you know, just like Greta Thunberg style, or chasing horse style, like shake it up and make
Right.
sure your voice is heard. So we actually like documented the outcomes of this model. And you know, you always think about like trade-offs in design when you're doing projects like this. Like, did the extra time with storytelling affect the data quality that what the kids were collecting? And we found that no, the inclusion of storytelling throughout the cycle did not affect
Significantly,
the quality of the data. We also found that when the students were involved in the storytelling model compared to the students that were doing standard science only model, that their science self-efficacy, which is their belief in themselves about science, and their stewardship self-efficacy was changed to a greater degree and in a positive direction. Which was pretty cool. And then when we interviewed the educators, the educators they really appreciated, especially in the storytelling, the emphasis of positive thinking about the future for kids. That like we have a tangible role, and that the youth were a part of something bigger than themselves, like not just their class going out there and doing science,
Right.
but that it was connected to their community, their stories, their future.
And also it gives them hope that they can do something. It's not like, oh, you know, we can't do, it's climate happening, and what are we, you know, just kind of suffer. And so give them a way to act, work towards a better future.
It became
adaptation.
It became one of our favorite things to do with youth, and we've adapted this model to so many other projects now because of the hope dimension.
Yes.
And we actually like looked at whether or not the kids put themselves in the pictures, you know, when we were drawing, and as agents of change in the pictures. And we talked with most of the kids about what they were drawing, which was really enlightening. And when we were coding the pictures themselves, we were able to like say, okay, did they have themselves as an agent of change? And it was, when we looked at it, 56% of the kids, and we did this with hundreds of kids across Alaska in urban and rural settings, 56% of the kids had themselves as an agent of change in their stories. and 17% had somebody else as an agent of change. So, oh, Elise will fix that. Ramy will fix that. You know, like I'll just be there and I'll be picking berries with my kids in the future. And then 27% of the drawings didn't have themselves at all. And so we thought that was really interesting. Of the ones that were in the agent of change category, rural youth were more likely than urban youth to picture themselves as somebody making a difference. And we thought that that was really interesting.
Yes.
Did
And
you, oh, sorry.
yeah, keep going, Mary Beth.
I was going to say, did you look at like how, because I was thinking if you're more rural, you are probably more connected to the land because it's just often that's what happens versus urban. I mean, did you figure out how often like the urban kids were actually going out on the land and stuff, or that was a little bit beyond what scope of what you were looking at?
It was beyond, but I think that you can assume also, you know, to kind of control, all of them went out weekly to their berry patch to collect the data. So we know that that was in common across all of the kids in this study. And but we also think, like, you know, when you're in a small community of, just like in my own childhood growing up and like my family living in some, you know, I grew up in Fairbanks, but many of my family members lived in very small communities, and you're like, you're the teacher, but you're also the alternate VPSO, and you're also in charge of running the GCI tower, and you're also like on, you know, and your uncle's on the school board. So like, you know that you're going to have to play a lot of roles in your community, and you're going to be like a change maker in your community because it's a small place.
Also, because you're far from resources,
right?
You know, the grocery stores. I mean, you know, if you don't have the berries, you know, the fruits that come in are so expensive. So so that's why they're more likely to want to do something.
So this is kind of a cool, like, just thought question maybe for discussion after. We probably could open up discussion now because that's the end really of our talk. But like, you know, urban Arctic youth, I think there's a gap there in like what we can do for urban Arctic youth in helping position them as agents of change, also in a place where they might feel more diluted or just one of many, you know, like how do we encourage urban Arctic youth also to feel like they could be agents of change? So that's a conversation starter. And like one thing that we also found was like the groups that did the storytelling model kept coming back and wanted to come back, and like we had no funding left for this project, and those groups wanted to keep going for 3-4 years, like just because of the pure love of it. And so I think that there's something there too, like it becomes more meaningful. It
becomes personal.
When you include stories. So we want to open it up here for some discussion on what ways that you think storytelling has been important to your own work, or any like questions or comments about this approach.
I just want to say thank you really quick. I'm gonna have to drop off in like 2 minutes, but I just really appreciate you sharing all of this too. And it also made me think of I don't know if it's still on, but the Molly of Denali cartoon that used to be on. I don't know if it is still on. My kids stopped watching it, so I like I'm not as aware now. But I could just see the two of you as characters on there in like Molly's classroom, because she has a berry episode, and like now I could see like the community science and like your storytelling, and Molly and her friends going out and doing their storytelling. But I appreciate you sharing this, and I think it is really interesting to see the difference between that rural and urban. And it also makes me think of like, because rural possibly more of that, well, okay, this is also my little soapbox for a second, but like as a whole country is like we see ourselves often as individuals, and it's easier in some ways in an urban area to see yourself individually than it is in rural areas. Not necessarily like that, but I was just thinking of like that individualism versus collective and what does that look like. And so anyways, but I do need to go, but thank you so much. It was great to see both of you and for sharing, and really appreciate it. And you can share some of your lessons plans. I'd love to look at them if they're available. Great.
Pop it
in the chat.
Let me pop that in there real fast. if you're faster than me, Elise, they're on our last slide here. Oh, no, they're not. Just joking. This project, let's see. We've adapted this to so many situations. That's what
Yes.
one of our
Yeah.
AGU talks is on. As you applying this. Okay, on the Winterberry, there's like a for educators section and all the lesson plans that we did for the storytelling learning cycle model are there.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, Berry learning resources for educators.
Yeah.
Cool.
So much. I gotta go, but
All right, thanks very
okay,
much.
bye.
If yeah, just curious if anybody else has used storytelling or scenarios. Elise, didn't you work on that Heart Force project?
No, my office works on that, but
Yeah.
I haven't worked on that, but you might be thinking of the We Are Water project, which also uses a lot of storytelling about water in the Four Corners region.
And like anticipating the future, right? Like the idea
I
of
think so.
what we know now to plan for the future.
I think so. I'm
Yeah.
really interested in the like climate mental health aspect of this
Yeah.
because
Mhm.
I think having researchers come in who study climate and repeatedly asking about, into these climate sensitive areas and then repeatedly like talking about like, oh, you're going to get hit the hardest and this is what the
Mhm.
future could hold. And I'm wondering if you could talk about whether this storytelling approach really like has some healing aspect to it, like
Mhm.
a little bit less doom and gloom and is better for overall wellness in these areas.
Yeah, I think first of all, I guess in rural villages, they have indigenous elders to
Mhm.
listen to, at least here in Alaska.
Mhm.
And their elders hold hope for them because they know that they have adapted all these centuries, their ancestors and everything. So that's one aspect. And the other thing is because they know that they're expected to learn and see how to do these things, it's very personal to them, and that they know that they can do something. Like the middle school student who worked with us came to our workshop, kicking and screaming at first because her mom wanted her to come and she didn't. And then now she is a youth leader, Arctic ambassador
Yeah.
and youth ambassador, and she was a regional youth ambassador for Tanana
Mhm.
Chiefs. And it is. And so I think the youth are taking the role of saying, and actually talking to the adults and saying, we need to do something.
Yeah.
We don't want a future that's all devastated. We need to start working now.
Yeah.
So important.
One of my undergrad students, Nolan Ernest, he for his senior thesis project last year, he wanted to dive into, he was a film student and he wanted to dive into how youth are perceiving their future in a changing climate. And I was like, well, go, like here's the fifth grade classrooms. He was interested in fifth grade because that's like the oldest in the elementary school now. And it was like, I want to know how they're thinking about the future. And I was like, well, go to some of the classes that we did this technique with and see what they're thinking. Yeah. And when he started doing his interviews, he was like, oh, they are so pragmatic. Like when they start thinking about the future early, it's like, oh, we're going to deal with this. It's not like a despair feeling. It's not like, so some of the things that we might be feeling, but my own children have had like nightmares about climate change because like we talk about it a lot in our family, obviously. And like I've had to be like,
it's going to be okay.
We're gonna,
Yeah,
like
we're
it's
going
gonna be okay.
Yeah, we're going to work through this.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think that it's my favorite lesson, Elise, because of the feeling of empowerment.
Yeah.
And
Hope.
our only choice is hope. And so
Yeah. And
so like, how do we teach that rather than stagnation and despair and inaction, right? Raimi, hi, how's it going?
Hey. At least that in a sense is kind of the commitment that I was offered 25 years ago. And UA even in the early 2000s got a geriatric education grant for all 3 campuses to explore how some of that in that realm then as kind of co-production was then, and then anticipating kind of what, at least for the borough, for the Fairbanks North Star borough, what the school district was facing and what the assembly was facing. And so could, in a sense, storytelling be used as a way to help braid some of the organizations and some of the government and policymakers, also as a way for them to practice some of this, as a way then to model exactly what Katie and you all then, so I think I can only but encourage and support more interdisciplinary practice, in part so that all these kids that are 7 and 8 years old are then empowered to take this field even in ways that we have no idea.
Yeah.
So I think it is something very much worth continuing to support and look forward to working with any doing that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Thanks, Laura. Glad to have you here. Thanks, Elise. Thanks for
Yeah.
keeping us organized.
Yeah, thanks all. Let me just plug our next event before we sign off here. Nope, don't need that. Our next Learning Connect event is in January. It'll be on inclusive mentoring. So ahead of sort of the spring and summer research for undergraduates, experiences that many researchers have in the lab, we'll be talking about ways to be a better mentor. And then our NNA-CO annual meeting will be in March as part of the Arctic Science Summit Week. So more details about that are on our webpage. And then we have a quick survey for today. We would appreciate your feedback, and I'll put the full link in the chat here. And I'll also send this out via email in the next couple of days, along with the recording. There we go. Thanks for being here, everybody. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Yeah. Stop the recording. There it is.